Hey guys, this is Matt for Creative. I just saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I have feelings about it. So going into any Indiana Jones movie, I really have always had that feeling of like adventure. Just fun adventure, even with the second movie, which was a little bit darker than everything. It was still a fun adventure. There was an end. There was, promise of something else coming, another movie, like in the trilogy, and then the fourth movie came. Even that was a fun movie. Like that just kind of moved things along. It ended with a wedding, the fourth movie. But this movie, I really have to say the way that it landed on me was, it felt sad. It felt more than just, or not more than, it was not like, at least for me and the feeling that I got watching the movie, it wasn't like a fun, rambunctious adventure of like a summer blockbuster movie. And of course I went in there thinking of that. But Harrison Ford, I'm kind of looking at my notes, Harrison Ford is 80 years old. It feels like he's 80 years old in the movie. And it feels like they're trying to capture some kind of youth in his performance. Like, his performance is good. He is trying to act like not an 80-year-old person. He's trying to move a little bit more. Of course, they do show kind of his age throughout the entire movie. But it just, first, like, I don't know where to begin. Like, this is going to be spoilers in and out throughout this entire video, but it's just, let's start from the beginning of the movie. So the beginning of the movie, you have a computer-generated younger version of Harrison Ford on one of his adventures looking for a dagger that the Nazis were also trying to look for too. He has his friend who's helping him, and it's just, that felt like an adventure. Now I do have to say, as like part of the production, when you hear young or CGI young Indiana Jones Harrison Ford speak, they use his voice as it is now. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, this doesn't work. When you age, you start to lose some of the control that you have when you're younger. Like, even me, I can realize that younger, I was a little bit more lighter in tone. Every once in a while I can hear like this little, like, kind of, not a droop, but kind of just like, it's not as prime as it once was, the act of speaking. And it's really, really odd. First, the CGI, the deep fake, young Indiana Jones, it is not flawless. Like, it's an uncanny valley. I really respect what they did, and there are just some parts that are also like a little bit too CGI. Like when Indiana Jones is on top of a train, you can tell the train is kind of CGI, but the way that he moves, you could just get kind of an actor and film them far away, but you can tell it's like one of those, like, doesn't obey the laws of physics, kind of jumps from car to car. It just doesn't feel right. And when you don't do that right, the movie kind of loses its real authenticity. Where, when I say authenticity, I mean like the first three movies, where just like they were real, they felt like Indiana Jones stories, and they felt rooted in, like, they felt grimy and real. And when you have this kind of CGI mix of things, it just feels like a 2023 movie that was made now. So it kind of removes that nostalgia piece, because that's not Indiana Jones. It doesn't sound like a young Indiana Jones. And what I really think they should have done instead was, I know for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, James Earl Jones has retired from speaking as the character of Darth Vader. So what they did is there's some kind of AI function that recreates speech. And for that, I guess that works because Darth Vader is very kind of like monotone, robotic in his performance and the way that he sounds like. So maybe they could have, maybe AI generating that would have worked. But immediately you could tell that, that you could tell that there is the droop in the mouth when old Harrison Ford was trying to enunciate and really just make everything sound like a young person. I really think they could have done a little bit more to make him sound younger too, but that's just kind of the first thing that really caught me off guard. And I had to like go into it. Now, the entire movie, you may be thinking, okay, you're gonna get a ton of flashbacks. Its main portion of a flashback is this first scene, which goes for maybe about, 20 minutes, I feel like. Later in the movie, you see another older Indiana Jones, but not exactly as old as he is now, speaking to his friend, trying to get him out of like this manic state where he's trying to work with this ancient relic, I think basically the Dial of Destiny for this movie. And it kind of works better because it's an older Indiana Jones and he has that kind of talk, and it just doesn't, it's different. It's different. Young Indiana Jones with that old voice doesn't work. The new middle-aged one kind of works, but the movie is not about that. It is really a lot of 80-year-old Harrison Ford, and I really thought that they were going to not like use it as a crutch, but kind of use it as a crutch. The flashbacks, I thought there was going to be the main story in the present day, and I thought they were going to cut back every so often, just have young Harrison Ford going through adventures and things that are relevant to the story, but they didn't do that, and I kind of feel like they should have, because you can tell Harrison Ford is 80 years old. And as rude as it sounds to say something like this, it's kind of like digging up a corpse to make them dance. Because I just can't get over the fact that Harrison Ford is 80 years old, and it's not like he's still just acting. Like, maybe think of Star Wars The Force Awakens. He was kind of moving a little bit, but Indiana Jones is a character of action, and he's, using the whip. He's punching out bad guys. He's doing this. He's driving cars in the movie, and it feels like an older person is doing it, because of course an older person is doing that. At some points you can see that they're kind of using maybe a deep fake of an old Indiana Jones face on another actor when it comes to certain points. And it just, that kind of, it made me feel sad to see that. Harrison Ford, he does not phone in this performance, because I would say that he does phone in performances, just doesn't want to fully react and emote as the character and whatever he's playing should or does. But in this movie, he does do a good job. But that immediately got me in this tone of just melancholy and sadness. And continuing on into it, the story picks up where Indiana Jones, his wife has left him because, Shia LaBeouf's character in the previous movie, he enlisted and died. The character dies. You don't see it. You briefly see just like this little photo of him on the mantle, but the character dies, and that's extremely sad. Whether you liked the character or not, whether you like Shia LaBeouf or not, having that happen to such an endearing character like Indiana Jones. In the first real scene with old Indiana Jones, he's like going to work. You can tell he's just an old man. He's retiring. He's just at the end of everything. His wife is divorcing him. Marion's divorcing him. And it's sad. Like, it made me feel sad for the character as well as Harrison Ford being an old. Now, I know it doesn't matter. He's doing these movies. He's able to do this. He's able to do more than I probably physically can at 80 than I am here in my 30s. It's just incredible what he does. But it's just, as a viewer and an appreciator of movies and Indiana Jones as a character, seeing what they kind of wrote for him in this is just sad. And as things kind of go along, you meet the new character. You could call them like, oh, they're trying to have the next Indiana Jones type of character. The actress name is Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Her character's name is Helena Shaw. She is the daughter of the friend who is helping Indiana Jones in the kind of prequel to all of this. And she turns out to be like she's actually one of the best parts about this movie, because she can carry a lot of like the younger action sequences. I really don't think that they're going to turn the franchise over to her, but it was a really good option to have someone as young as her kind of filling the shoes, not like a damsel in distress, but kind of somebody on Indiana Jones's equal, the character's equal, and just able to like take care of her own. But my favorite part about this is this wasn't one of those things where she's double crossing Indiana Jones. No, you can tell that she's doing this for herself. You don't feel like our main character is being double crossed. You can kind of tell along the way that Helena Shaw is out for making money for herself. Indiana Jones kind of looks down on her and asks, oh, how could you become this? And then she says like, oh, how could I become beautiful, successful, and independent? And I was like, that is something that she is. She is her own separate entity, and her character and her drives. It's different than the Indiana Jones's, but she has a lot of similarities too. Like in this movie, she has a kid counterpart, just like Indiana Jones had in the second movie, which I think is really endearing. And this kind of young kid character follows them throughout the entirety of the movie. But looking at that and having this kind of life, a new version of, you could say, of Indiana Jones, repeating kind of the same steps, it was really nice to see. But again, I was always snapped back to, this movie just makes me feel, and even going at the end, it makes me feel sad. I don't know how to say it. They do. If it was their intention to make me feel that way, then they really succeeded in what they're doing. But if their intention was to make like a fun summer blockbuster, it was not a fun summer blockbuster. It was pretty dramatic as a movie in general. And I guess it may work because kind of every Indiana Jones has a different type in this now 5-picture deal here. The first is, I would say, just like your traditional B movie. The second is a much darker tone, but dark as in scary and violent. And the third is more of like a comedic venture. And this last one is a very dramatic rendition of an Indiana Jones and a man in general. And there's even a line where one of Indiana Jones's old friends, and the actor is John Rhys Davies, who plays Sala. He comes to Indiana Jones's aid, and you think, okay, they're going to have adventures together, and he drives Indiana Jones to the airport to go to the next portion of the story, and he's like, I brought my passport. You know, let's have like one last adventure, let's go, let's do this together. And Indiana Jones says, this is not an adventure, this is life or death, this is not like the fun that we used to have, or something very close to that. And that kind of made me sad, because for a moment I was thinking, what fun this character of Indiana Jones's friend would have had throughout the movie, whether it be a life or death thing. He was just looking for another happiness, another kind of to feel young moment, as Indiana Jones is kind of forced into, looking for the kind of Dial of Destiny, or one of the two parts of the Dial of Destiny, which I'll call it. I know it's called something else, but I want to keep it like towards the name of the movie. It just really kind of like, that moment was like, I would have loved to see that movie. It would have been a slower paced. I would have been heartbroken if anything happened to that character, because of course, after everything wraps up, you do see that character again at the end, kind of helping closure things. And I was like, I would have loved for that character to have another go with it. And that, again, it made me sad not to be able to allow that character to do it. But it would have made for maybe a slower pace and lesser action-packed movie. But of course, you get Indy paired with a young female, like, I guess, archaeologist or person who just wants to sell these things and not put them in a museum. It does go to a wild place. So, as Indiana Jones is looking for pieces, the Nazi character is also looking for these pieces, and they're always back to back to back to back to back. And eventually in the movie, the Nazi character, played by Mads Wilkinson, or Mads Mikkelsen, I'm terrible at this right now, who plays Jürgen Voller. He does put everything together. It shows him the place to go, because what he wanted to do, as weird as it sounds, is he wanted to go back in time to the 1930s, or 1930 exactly, kill Hitler and install himself as the proper Führer, so that he could kind of overstep the mistakes that Hitler made and kind of make a functional Nazi thing. Because we all know, if you study history, Hitler himself had huge amounts of like just problems, and his problematic nature kind of maybe aided the downfall of the Nazis, as well as America and everybody else beating them down. But he does succeed in getting these pieces together, but because of a miscalculation from Archimedes, who in this movie made this dial, because of a miscalculation, and it's something called continental shift, where this device was supposed to lead you to an exact point and lead you to an exact point in time, it was off by a little bit. So instead of sending them, because they do go back in time, a shot Indiana Jones is carried along with the Nazis just to poke fun. I mean, for narrative's sake, they have to keep him alive. They have to show him what we're able to see with this, or else it wouldn't be an Indiana Jones movie. But honestly, it was just like they're taking them along to kind of rub in his face, like, this is what we're going to do to you, and then they would kill him. But it turns out it takes them to the time when Archimedes is alive and there's a battle, and Indiana Jones meets Archimedes. He's probably near death at this point, and if he didn't have, I guess, current 1969 medicine, he would have probably died there. But at this point, they've killed the Nazi character. That plane or whatever that this Nazi character's on has crashed. The story is now moved on to, they have to go back through the same portal that they came through to get out of this, to not be stuck in the past. But Indiana Jones, Helena Shaw, meets Archimedes, and of course they're speaking to him. I believe what's the language? Is it Latin? I hope I'm getting that right. But you can tell, like, Indiana Jones knows he's near death, and he's like, I want to stay. We all know, and Helena Shaw knows, that would like mess up the course of history. It's not meant to be. It's definitely shouldn't work. But in that moment, you can tell, like, his whole life, he's been researching these relics. He is now able to live, for however brief, in this beautiful time. And he's able to communicate with them. He's like, I want to stay. And I think they should have made the decision to have him stay, as much as it would have messed up the timeline, would have messed up history. However, what it would have been. I really wish that they had allowed him to have the closure of dying as an archaeologist, being able to live in that time, to finish your life in that time. is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I would have loved to see that. But in classic fashion, Helena Shaw says, "I'm sorry," and just knocks Indiana Jones out. He wakes up, they've gone back through the portal, he wakes up in his home in 1969, and he really says again, "Why I wanted to stay. You should have let me stay. What am I here for?" And again, it's one of those heartbreaking things where his son is dead. His wife is divorcing him. And he's like, "Who am I here for?" And I could really feel like, what is he there for? What really is he there for? And in walks Marion, his soon-to-be ex-wife. And at least for that moment, you can tell, because they do get romantic. They recreate, I think it's in the first movie, the erogenous zones, kissing the elbow and the shoulder. And you can tell that this is kind of made to be like, that's the happy ending of all of this, but still with so much loss of a son, it's heartbreaking to kind of feel that. And I didn't feel like there was joy at the end of this movie. I felt like this is the end of Indiana Jones' story. He's not dead, but still, it's like, what does he have left? But maybe this time with his wife and reconnecting with his wife is how you can properly end a life. But I really think he would have been happier with himself as just an adventure seeker living in the past. I think they should have made that kind of choice. And I don't think it's a hard choice. I think it's just a choice that they should have committed to, at least in my personal opinion. But that's my thoughts on the movie. I think it's the dramatic conclusion to the Indiana Jones story, and it's just what, it was. And I remember I was talking about, what each individual movie is. First is a B movie, second is a darker, violent take on it, third is the comedic version. I totally forgot to even mention what the fourth is. The fourth just kind of feels like a generic movie from the early 2000s, and this one just feels like a dramatic take on an Indiana Jones story. So if that's what they were going for, they succeeded. But I would be prepared to kind of take it that way. Or if you can enjoy this as a summer blockbuster, please do. But it's just a very different movie, and I could see how some people would not like this movie if they were expecting kind of more of a light-hearted fare. But that's just me. All right, guys. If you have any comments or questions, put in the comments section below. Don't forget I'm on Instagram at M8B9. You can email me at creativenyc2023@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.